right. Well, it says I'm live, so welcome aboard, everybody, to Virtual Collage Jam for Monday, October 24th, I see. And our theme today is Monster Mash, because this is the last jam before Halloween, so I thought we would do something that tipped the hat to Halloween a little bit. And this is one of some of you may know that Rebecca Niblett, who is often with us on the Collage Jams, is doing some artist assistant work for me, and something I charged her with was coming up with some themes, and this is one of hers. So thank you, Rebecca. Awesome. And so yeah, that's what our theme will be today. So looking forward to getting on with that shortly. I'll switch the camera to the overhead not too long from now. But I just wanted to say welcome aboard, everybody, and hope you had a good Thanksgiving, and hope if you're in Southern Ontario, enjoying this amazing weather that we're having. So great. And what else? Kim cannot be joining us today, unfortunately. So she sends her love and regrets. She had a teaching gig yesterday or last week, and she's still tired from it. So yeah, she's taken on very little teaching this fall, and so yeah, so and it's a good thing. So yeah. So I'm not, there we are. Hey, Val, how are you? I was just going to say, I'm not seeing any chat yet. And then Val showed up. So hi, Val. Nice to see you. Hey, Jane. Yay. Welcome aboard, Jane. Stay tuned, Jane, for a little talk about you. Yeah, no, that's great. Okay. Hello, Amy. Yay. So yeah, I thought I was thinking there for a moment that the chat function wasn't working, but I see you're here, so that's good. Yay. I am, in honor of the day, I'm wearing, because you won't see this otherwise probably, I'm wearing Kim's loaned me her sort of cubist skull t-shirt that she bought, and it's one of her favorites. So she said, "You want to wear that today?" And I said, "I absolutely do." So appropriate for our theme. So yeah. So yeah, so I mentioned you, Jane. And so I got my collage issue of Collage magazine just last week, I think it was. And of course, if I were professional, I would have flagged what I'm about to flip to, but I didn't. But Jane Laster Gordon has an article, including it's a 4-pager, including 2 pages of visuals and 2 pages of text about her collages that she has been doing using a photograph that her father did. Her father used to work on in construction. Was it, Jane? Or you can let us know in the chat. I know he was involved in building in New York, but I'm not sure I can't remember off the top of my head in what capacity. And so she was working with an image like that, and she also, someone was looking at her works and said, it reminds me of 9/11, the fragmented buildings, and that reminded Jane that she had been on a plane on her way to New York that morning. And so so her article talks about that otherworldly experience and how it's underlies those collages that she didn't even realize. So amazing article and amazing work, and amazing that you're in it, Jane. So it's great to see our collage jammers making their way out into the world and showing their work to a wider audience. So yeah, major applause, Jane. Congratulations. Right. Okay. So Jane says he was one of the first photographers for Life magazine. Awesome. Yeah. And to say hello, Nellie. Glad to have you back and along. And Philippa, hello. And Amy, absolutely. And LJ Bodley. Yay, Jane. Yes, absolutely. Um, and Val also, congratulations. Yeah. So um, LJ, what name is that? What name should I call you? LJ? Is LJ good? Lori. Hi, Lori. Okay, perfect. I will I will remember for this episode, I'm sure, and hopefully I'll remember going forward. Yeah. Hey, Debbie. Yay, that's nice to have you along, and welcome back. Awesome. So I'm gonna switch my camera to my overhead, and I'm not a horror person. I'm not a monster kind of person. I know some people really enjoy that. I'm not really one of those kind of people, but I'll take a kick at it. I have some ideas and printed off some images, which I'll show you once I switch the camera to the overhead, and I'll just see how it goes. Meanwhile, let us know in the chat if you're taking this theme on, what you're thinking. Are you um, the collage artist who did the collage workbook, Randall Plowman, that I often mention? He has a prompt that he calls Frankenstein, and basically making figures or images out of all kinds of different parts, like cobbling them together. And not that they end up scary necessarily, but there is that sort of mad mashing together of different human components. So that's certainly a way you could go about it. And I'm going to have, I think, some of that, but I'm also going to use some. I thought it would be interesting to mesh um, some monstrous images, images of monsters or scary ones, like Halloweeny type images that I found online, with maybe some fashion imagery, because fashion figures into everything I do these days anyway. So I thought that would be interesting to sort of have these, beautiful, terrible, or yeah, juxtapositions. So yeah, glad to have you back, Debbie. That's awesome, and thank you for the hugs. I'll definitely pass them along to Kim. That's lovely. Yeah. So, gonna go dark for just a second while I get the camera to the overhead position. So, do not adjust your set, because we'll be back in a sec with visuals from overhead. There we go. And wow, you can see my nice messy desk. But that is collage, isn't it? Nice messy desk is just the way collage rolls. So why don't I show you just briefly what I have gathered together. So I to my classes, I've mentioned several times the website Pixabay, and it's not the only one. I think they're Pexels, I think, is another one that I haven't explored yet. But they're places where photographers and illustrators and creators who are willing to will share images that they're fine with anyone using in any way. So um, and it's a mixed bag. Some of the stuff is like, wow, that's actually really great. Some of it's pretty amateurish, and some of it's everywhere in between. Um, they if people are sharing it with the free the freedom for you to do whatever you like with it, that's so generous. Um, so these images that I've got here, I printed this one twice because I thought it'd be interesting to have it more than once. Um, some of them are just, they're people, sort of enthusiasts in makeup rather than like professional movie type things, but some of them are still plenty compelling, and I figured they're going to be components in my collage, rather than, I'm not leaning on one per se. I found this sort of colorized black and white image of an eye interesting, but I thought it was too huge, so I printed it 4 up. This green cast, I think, is pretty fun, and sort of a distressed doll image. Anything that's sort of normally charming, like dolls and clowns and stuff like that can add to the creepiness, right? So I've got those, and then I've got some images of just everyday people. And I was just rifling through my red file, and I noted, like, this is left over from something I did, I think in 2021 on one of the collage jams, COVID Christmas or something. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll use some of that. That's a sort of a real scary thing that we've all experienced. So those are my raw materials, and I also have, as I often do, a stack of fashion magazines nearby that I'll also rifle through. So, hey, Cherie, welcome aboard. Yeah, hi, everyone. She says, monsters give me bad sleeps, as my nephew would say. Yeah, me too. I'm using the prompt, but not sure where it'll go. Yeah, that's totally cool. You can just use it as an idea, use that sort of Frankenstein idea if you want to use the prompt, but not really go too dark or scary. Because, yeah, I'm not some people just can't wait for the next horror movie, and I could wait the rest of my life for the next horror movie. I'm not interested. I mean, maybe I should try it. Maybe I'll find that I have an inner that I actually enjoy that cathartic scaring, but I'm not anxious to get started. So, hey, Judy, welcome back. Nice to see you. Yeah, so she says, hi, Cal, here for a bit. So glad to see you. All the best to him. Oh, thank you so much, Judy. And yeah, it's great to have you along and back. So something I've been playing with a fair bit recently, I just finished teaching a workshop on it, is decollage. And that's the idea where you pile up a bunch of layers of collage materials and then you cut or tear to reveal things below. And I'm just starting to find that really, really interesting. And I am a control freak, so I like to do things that I can completely control, but I also know that kills the spontaneity. So when I layer things up and I can't remember exactly what's where underneath, and then I tear from above or cut through from above, it allows me to work with a little more chance and a little more serendipity. And so I've been really enjoying that. So I might try that same approach with some of these, both more sort of traditional beauty images and scary images, and just see how that works. So the first thing I'm going to do is just rifle through a few of my nearby fashion magazines for a few more conventional beauty faces and to have in my mix. Or maybe they won't always be conventional beauty, because that's kind of a compelling one, that for that image there. Might find its way in. Cherie has said she's going to sort of not quite sure how to go about the particular prompt. What are other people's ideas as far as how to address the monster mash? Are you full on horror people, or are you gonna work at it a different way, or are you gonna say, yeah, no, this prompt isn't for me, I'm gonna try something else? Which, all is valid, There's a big face right there. That's maybe a Coleman, I think. Yeah. It's not really the best image. It's sort of, but that's one of the things with collage. It doesn't always need to be the perfect image to be a useful image in a collage, right? So it's kind of fun with the sort of dramatic glasses. The dark hair and dark eyes and the brightly lit face, that's got lots of contrast drama to it. even though I'd gathered some materials, I also like to just, they were things that I sort of mostly found online. So there is a certain degree of chance to that too, but there's also something nice about just rifling a magazine, not knowing what you're going to find, and then just grabbing the occasional thing from that as well. So that's why I thought I'd do this just a quick grab from something kind of camp and horror related somehow to this Gucci image. It's not my idea of what but you know, that's hey, can be part of the mix, right? So let's see what you guys have been saying. So Jane says, I'd rather call them creatures because they can be monsters. Yeah, absolutely. Jane said, oops, didn't finish because creatures can just be cute, funky, or monsters, but not too scary. Yeah, exactly. If anything that sort of has that, has some Halloween overlap, yeah, nothing wrong with that. Nellie says, I collected some images. I let them transport me. Absolutely. That's the thing, right? Like so many other art forms, you know, if you've hired a model or you go to a class and you're drawing a model or you're going to a particular place to draw, like landscape or have photographs to work from. But collage, you can be this magpie and just flip between. You can look for something very specific, of course, but you can also let chance and serendipity give you like, oh, how about this starting point? How about this starting point? And also put crazy stuff together. So I'm thinking I'm gonna start with and then I realize I don't really know where that sentence is going because I don't know what I'm gonna start with yet. So but maybe what I'll do is just I printed this skull one off twice, so maybe that means that I can play with one of those. Get started with that. And I have no idea what I'm going to do yet, and that's fine. I'm just going to start playing. Maybe tearing is better for what I'm thinking. Maybe sort of a controlled tear along a ruler. I think maybe that's. I'm definitely going to do some of those, or at least take on one of those more layered ideas where I'm of day collage, but I'm also going to try as well some just finding interesting juxtapositions of images as well. So one of them I'm thinking would be interesting is this, something about this particular trench coat that's got this bizarre neckline. Bizarre but fun, you know. Love that about fashion. Play with that and then introduce, instead of the actual trench coat below that line, the more horrific sort of image. And We'll just see whether that does anything interesting or not. I think I might go down the seam here. Which means I have cut too far over in this part, so I better do a little patch on the back. It doesn't pull apart on me. I sort of lost track of what I was cutting over here. There we go. That never happens, right, guys? Never lose track of what's been cut and not cut. It's funny how I didn't really have any ideas, so I'm just starting to play a little bit with just basically just the nearest whiff of something, right? Just picking a couple of images that look like they might be interesting to play with together, and then just going from there. Sorry if I've gone silent there. Sometimes when I get into the cutting or the thinking, that doesn't make for very good companionship, so I apologize about that. But it does happen to me from time to time, as you know. That's where Kim really comes in handy. She often does, with her interesting color banter for us. So, yeah. That's kind of fun. Just this little glimpse of two big eyes that look creepy and coming out from underneath the hat there. And this mouth seems almost overkill. So I wonder if maybe less. Or maybe it needs that is asking for something entirely different, which it might be. So let's see if maybe those eyes are enough, right? Maybe it's just like little bit of the COVID stuff showing underneath. I love the way you can try different things with collage. For instance, I'm thinking like this COVID, I don't even know what the name of them. It's not a molecule virus. I don't know whether that a single thing is called a virus or it's collectively a virus. I don't know. But I'm just thinking it's overly busy. So when I was thinking maybe I'll cut it out. Maybe it might find its way into something else, and then just let this red show through in that shape. So I'm going to try that. I somehow think that something down there, but not something too. Of course, now I'm looking at the shape of the virus and thinking, all right, that's a fair bit of cutting, Cal, but you know, I'm up for it. Yeah, it's a really pretty complex little shape. Not so little, but lots of little direction changes on it. Perfect. You know, what else am I going to do? It's a collage. It's a collage jam. I should be cutting things out, right? So, yeah. I'll check in with the chat in just a couple minutes, see what you guys are talking about, thinking about. And I imagine this year we're going to have more kids at the door again. The last couple of years, I think last year actually was even worse than the year before. I think in 2020 there were more people were anxious to get out, even though they were being more careful about, but they still sort of like came up close, you know, and sort of can't even remember what I did. I had some way of delivering it that was reasonably safe, like down a tube or something. I think that's what it was. I had like a like a cardboard tube that a big roll of paper came on, and I just got them to stand a little ways away and shot it down into their bags that way. But yeah, last year we had very few people coming to our door. It always depends also on what day of the week and so on. But and we live on a cul-de-sac, so that's actually fairly dark, which is great for Halloween, but it's also not so great for little kids. So we do get locals, but we don't get a ton of people. A lot of the sort of wider ranging older kids, I think they just skip over our street. So I often end up having candy left over, which is it used to be a real problem. I used to like completely lose my mind and binge on it, but now I just I either donate it or give it away, or because life is too short to have all that in my system. I have a nice little binge, and then I get it out of my sight so that I don't continue to do that, because I really have a low tolerance for sugar now. I notice like it's great but I don't crave it in the way that I used to. So I'll have some and it's great. That's fun. Oh yeah, I remember this is like really fun. And then it will, it's almost like caffeine that because I'm not used to it, I get such a sugar buzz off of it. Almost it's uncomfortable. and then I have like a crash and feel terrible. And of course there's all kinds of awful stuff in candy anyway. So it's not in most candy, not all candy, right? But most Halloween stuff is far removed from anything that would be homemade, right? So it's full of questionable ingredients, far removed from from food in any real sense. All right, made it about halfway around my COVID, and I will go check on what you guys are saying. So, Cherie says, I'm into sellotape transfers right now. The image will dictate what I do with it. Yeah, that's great, actually, because you'll be able to see through one image to the next. So that will allow you some nice ghoulish layering options. Debbie says, just came back from the Venice Biennale, and there were a lot of frightening installations. Horrific, to be honest. Wow. That doesn't surprise me in some respects, but it does in others, because most of us think of art and beauty as being related, but a lot of contemporary work is addressing some of the scary things in the world, right? So, and the world has become a scary place with climate change and with a lot of the with war and so on. So it is understandable. Yeah, not what she expected at all. Yeah, and I totally get that. And Cherie says, art reflects life. Life can be pretty frightening these days. Exactly. My brother from another mother saw a lot of the installations as well. The photos were amazing. A new destination for my bucket list. Yeah, I definitely somewhere that Kim and I both would like to see at least once before in our lives and in our careers, and more if possible. But yeah, we've never been to continental Europe, which is a crime, but we would really love to see the Venice Biennale. So definitely on our bucket list for sure. All right, for those of you who are horror movie fans, because I'm sure some of you are, what are your favorite horror movies? I think I saw the first little bit of Aliens until something came flying out of someone's chest, and then it was like, no, I'm going far away from that, and it goes on TV, and I turned it off, and that was the end of that. That's probably the scariest thing I've ever seen. Yeah, I didn't see any need to seek that out in any. I'm sure some of the classics, though, like Frankenstein and Dracula and those kinds of things are probably a little less terrifying if they were made longer ago before CG effects could make things so quite so terrifying. I'm not calling the particular scenes to mind, but there were definitely some scary things in Lord of the Rings, but I could sort of manage that. And I know Peter Jackson came from horror, so that's so he enjoyed those those aspects of being able to tell that story. I know there are franchises of like endless sequels of like Friday the 13th and probably lots of other ones. I just don't. Do I know them? I don't know them, so no surprise. Jane says, I used to watch Frankenstein all the time. Loved horror movies as a kid. That's great, Jane. I love that. Cherie says, on the list of movies I can't unsee, Exorcist and Jaws. Yeah, I think I saw some of Jaws on when I was babysitting on late night TV, and I think it it got too intense, so I turned it off. Yeah, and yeah, I haven't seen The Exorcist, although I know it is a classic. So trying to find out how far I've cut again. Okay, to there. Oh, further apparently. Over to there, a lot further. So where haven't I cut? We got all the way around now? Looks like I might have, except for a little. You know, when you're cutting something out by knife and there are little spots where you haven't quite connected them, I will often, oh, there, I didn't quite finish in there. Especially if it's printed only on one side, like this is a print off my printer. It's white on the back, so it's easy to flip it over and just find, okay, where am I missing it? Where haven't I cut yet? Or why isn't it coming apart? It's because of this particular area. So yeah, so I'll flip it over and like, oh, I need to cut there a little bit. That part doesn't quite touch. That needs to be. So it helps me sort of. Sometimes you can just sort of tear it, but sometimes if it's just like a tiny little gap, but sometimes it's a little more than that. So. And in this case, I want both the positive and the negative. Well, I'll put the positive COVID will probably factor into another collage. And I want the negative as well for this one. And of course, I say that, and then I might decide, oh, actually, I want the positive for this collage and the negative for something else. But if you cut it carefully enough, you can have both. You can have your cake and eat it too. So. It's always interesting when you do something, you think you know what you're doing, and then you see it, and then you realize, oh, that's not as good as I thought, because it's nice having the sort of plain rather than that busy, but then I notice all these other spots which somehow feel more like too much to me. So it may be that this whole COVID idea is not quite what I was hoping it was going to be. Or maybe it just needs a different cropping. Yeah, see, something like that feels. Maybe I'll cut out one of these. There's kind of half COVID, half red Swiss cheese here going on, which is kind of fun. Yeah, so I think I'll do something like that. Put my eyes out off screen there, so I in a place where I can find them again, because we all know what it's like when you lose track of the piece you really need when you're collaging, right? So I think I need a bigger pad for this. Which is always a dangerous thing. Finding where you put something in my studio, where I've put something. Because I know I have a larger pad, but I can't see it right now. All right, well, that might mean that I just have to make it work on a smaller pad. Can I, though? That's now the question. If I crop off some of the top of that hat, I might be able to do that. And maybe crop off a bit of the lower part of the COVIDs. I was thinking it's going to look somewhere like that. So if I crop off the bottom, is it still okay? I think it kind of would be. I don't think it needs to be more than that. So maybe I'll align it with that. In fact, maybe I'll glue them to each other first and then make the cut. So kind of like this overlapping. So I need to figure out how to go about this now. All right, if I take it in place. Yeah, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I was thinking, oh, maybe I should cut off these white areas. But I think what I'll do is glue them together and then cut the white off afterwards. I think that'll work. We'll see. Right, so I've got some thin magazine paper, so it's always a bit of a luck of the draw if you guys know this probably too from working with magazine paper. It can be tricky because it curls up easily and can be hard to lay down flat. So cross your fingers for me. At least if what I've cut out isn't like super finicky. Like sometimes I'll forget that how difficult it is to lay magazines down flat until I've done all this like careful cutting. And then it's, oh, how am I ever going to lay this down? And it tears. And so, but that's just the nature of the beast as far as I'm concerned. I sort of try to work with it. Trying to sort of let it roll down a little bit, but it's objecting to that sort of treatment a little bit. So it's not going to lie quite flat, I can tell that. And I was going to have that part stick up, but it seems to me it's being more difficult. It's not aligning quite perfectly, so not do that. When the paper is dry without the glue on it, there are all these clever overlaps that it's easy to do, but then once glue starts getting involved, it's like it will test you. Like, how much does it matter to have that over and under thing that you thought was so cool going on? Sometimes it's not it's not worth it. All right, so I had a bit of wrinkling, but it's okay. And then I'll glue it to the red, and then I will do some cutting overall of everything. Looks like I didn't take the glue quite up to the top. I've got like 2 layers of paper here with some holes showing. Not quite sure what the best gluing technique is for this, so I'm just going to launch in and hope for the best. This is where one of those tinted glue sticks might come in handy, so that which I think is a great idea. I should see whether does anyone know, does Yoo-Hoo do tinted glue sticks as well? Because I've seen students have that, like the tinted glue sticks, but I'm not sure whether Yoo-Hoo, which is my go-to favorite kind of glue stick, whether they do it as well or not. I just find that the glue is the right consistency and it works really well. So I do like to stick with Yoo-Hoo if I can. Stick with Yoo-Hoo. That's bad. That's unintentionally funny and sad. Unintentional puns. All right. So apparently I didn't glue that part down. It's always the way, right? Something that's conspicuous where it's not, where you didn't get the glue where you need it to be. Do a little retrofitting in the hope that it'll hold okay. Part of this one's glued well and the other part is not glued well. All right. My hair was falling apart now. It's a very roughly cropped hair, I have to say. It's not a beautiful haircut. Not a beautiful collage haircut is what I mean. Her haircut's lovely. My cutting of it, not so beautiful. There's another edge that really just doesn't look like I glued it very well. Take these pieces of tape off, and of course they've lifted some of the ink. Classic. I forgot to dab them on my clothing first to pick up some fibers so that they weren't as sticky, so that is now officially part of the look of this piece, apparently, that it's got some tape distressing. All right, just check in with your comments, guys. Debbie says, I won't watch Silence of the Lambs or Rosemary's Baby, but do love Hitchcock movies. Yeah, there's the suspense is wonderful, right? Yeah. Cherie says, when Exorcist was first released, images of abattoirs and such were projected every hundreds of frames. Too fast to see with your conscious mind, but it registered ooh in your subconscious. Wow. Yeah, and Judy agrees with Debbie that the Hitchcock movies are great, but beyond that, yeah. And Cherie says that technique was used in yesteryear to sell pop when images of the desert were embedded. Right, the subliminal advertising. Right, the technique was banned as they were messing with people's subconscious. Learned that in my film class. I didn't know that about The Exorcist, though. That's it's one of those things that crosses a line, isn't it? Like you can understand the excitement of like, oh, this would be so clever and it would amp things up, but of course, it is also, yeah, it's a certain kind, it's an abuse, right? And especially, and of course, trust trust capitalism to find a way to do it to try and make money. Yeah. Lori says, found old New Yorkers this morning. March 9/20 has Trump screaming while blinded by a COVID mask. That's very funny. Um, and she says April 6th, 20 shows him operating on someone with Kushner reading from a medical handbook and Bannon handing him surgical instruments. Oh my God. And Fauci looking frantic. Yes. Yeah, Trump is a real life horror movie. um, Val says she used to watch horror movies. Now I don't need violence or gore too much in the real world and spend my time watching it. Prefer something that will make me laugh. Absolutely. Oh, and thanks, Jane. Yeah, okay. You who does make a blue tinted glue stick that allows you to sort of see where you. So I might have to try that out. So, well, I definitely have to. All right, so I think it's time to put our girl's creepy eyes in. And I kind of like this echo of red up there, but I'm not sure whether it's the right thing. So I'll get the eyes in first and then see whether that I will then see whether it needs it or not. This is kind of fun because it's a little bit creepy, but it's also a little bit camp, I think. Like there's a bit of a ET vibe going on there too. So, it's not, so let's see what it looks like without that red band across the top. Excuse me for a second, guys. I'll be right back. Kim was expecting a parcel, and I wasn't sure whether she heard the doorbell, and so, and I think it was something that actually did need to be signed for, but I think they were just leaving it, as is often the case these days. So I can't. I don't feel an immediate, for sure, one way or the other, but an echo of red across the top. I think what I'm going to do is try just like a sliver. Like not a super tiny sliver, but like a less than 1/4 of an inch, just to have this little echo of what's below, and then I'll see whether that seems right or not. And I'm going to cut this white out, I think, even though it's going right onto a white piece of paper. It's kind of a watercolor paper white rather than a stark copy paper white. So I'd rather that. Try not to take my finger with it at the same time. Thinking it'd be, so I was looking at it and thinking, we've got this sort of area where the hair is cut out on that side, so it's not fitting to a perfect quote unquote rectangle. So I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll have a little something up there. So I tried tearing away. I think that's probably too distracting, but I'm not positive yet. So I'm going to try that. And if it is too distracting, which I suspect it might be, I can always just lop it off straight so that this is straight cut and that straight cut. But you know, I'm thinking there's something to that. So I might just leave it. Why not, eh? Yeah, I'm just going to go with that and glue that down. If at some point, like tomorrow or the next day, and I'm looking at this collage and thinking, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, I can always glue a piece of black over top of it to calm it down again, or white or something else. But I think I'm okay with it. So this one, I think, is, whether it's done or not quite done, I'm going to move on after I get this glued down. And maybe I'll try a layered up decollage with some of those intermingled fashion magazines and horror images, and then see how that goes. But it's kind of fun to warm up with something like this, because I have been doing those decollages a lot lately. So come back to them, and having done a little, what I would call sort of more traditional collage, just finding stuff and combining it. But probably the idea to tear that is also coming from the fact that I've been doing a lot of decollage where they're sort of tearing away stuff. So, all right, so get that with a heavy art book on it for a few minutes. my Basquiat book. Under that, while I move on to the next one. Definitely want to have this green one in there, and I'm thinking that I might also put in sort of a nice acid green layer of just this acid green bond paper. So I'm just going to look at some layers, maybe this skull. He's kind of fun. It's amazing how beautiful she looks, even though like got all of this dramatic grossness. Yeah, I can see like, yeah, juxtaposing things like those two or those two would be pretty great. Yeah, in fact, those guys. She brings a lot of darks in, which is nice. You probably have a lot of, well, no, we got some lights in there too, which is good. Maybe not her. So, okay, I think I've sort of got what I want to have in the mix are those things, and I think I'll start for no good reason except that I have lots of it. A black base, which probably won't get much of it. Probably most of this black will not get seen, but it'll be underneath, and maybe occasionally it'll get torn back too. So I just finished doing a 2 Saturday morning course in day collage for Nielsen Park Creative Center over Zoom, and yeah, it was really fun to see what students came up with. And we just sort of learned how day collage works at first in the first session, and tried it on some smaller ones, and then I challenged them to do some larger scale day collages, or one, to be more honest, because of course the bigger it is, the more time consuming it is, right? But to try and do something larger than sort of 9 by 12, which is what a lot of certainly a lot of my day collages are, because I work with magazines. But day collage really started in the 60s and 70s, in I think maybe even late 50s, but with French artists who were going out into the street and looking at magazine posters put up on hoardings. And, you know, there'd be one layer after another of these posters stuck up one on top of each other on hoardings. And what they would do is they'd go out at night. I don't know what possessed them to do this, but to have this idea, but they went out and tore like 10 layers of old posters off the hoardings and took them back to their studios and started looking at like the images that were on top. And then if you tore back, tore back 1 or 2 or 3 layers, you get this glimpse of this other thing, because oftentimes the posters were either weathered by rain or they were imperfectly stuck one to the other. Because of course, posters don't have to last very long, right? They just need to be up for maybe a month or two, and then whatever they're advertising is past, an event or whatever. So, you know, as long as they're glued well enough to stay up for that long, that's all that matters. So they're imperfectly glued. So yeah, there's this, and then also you get the idea of like, sometimes you tear one image off or one layer off, and some of the image of one is on the back of the other, distressed. So they found that really interesting. And it introduces this sense of chance. But their works, what I was talking about, why I was telling you about that is because those works were quite large. Like they would make works that were, you know, several feet in each direction, because they're made up of multiple posters, and posters are large, right? So let's see what we're gonna. Maybe something light underneath. I like her near the top, so interesting. I'll put something like this under there anyway. Probably won't find its way to the top, but and when I do day collages, I try to do my gluing technique imperfectly. That is not carpet bombing it with glue as much as I normally would, so that things can be peeled up again without. So I've only covered maybe 50% of the back of this with glue stick, rather than making really, really sure I've covered every area. Like I did that with the black one because it's the base layer, but the next layers are going to be much less so. So what are you guys listening to these days? I'm sure we have diverse tastes, and I can't play music without major copyright issues while we're unfortunately. I'm sure there's free stock music that I could use, but if it's something that I like, then it may be something you don't like or whatever. So so one of the benefits of the fact is that you could put on whatever kind of music you like, especially if you're tired of listening to me babble on about whatever whatever my thoughts du jour are. I've been really quite enjoying an artist who my niece originally brought to my attention several years ago, and I really enjoyed an album of hers, of this artist, but then I sort of went away from her, and now I've gone back, and I've been really enjoying her work, because her name's Grimes, or her handle is Grimes, and it's very sort of synth poppy and very catchy, but it also has this sort of edginess to it that I'm quite enjoying. So it sort of plays with a sort of very sort of, I don't know, what would I say? Like poppy is probably the best word. It's very catchy music. It's poppy, but it also has some nice dark, edgy elements, and I like that contrast. So what are you guys listening to? And so what are you listening to, and what is music's role in your visual art? Because I notice that sometimes I really love having a soundtrack, and then sometimes I have to pause it, or sometimes I really can't have music because I need to think my own thoughts. I kind of oscillate between like really enjoying having a groove, and then sometimes really I just, oh, you know what, I'm getting too much into the music and I'm not thinking enough. So it kind of depends on the nature of what I'm doing, even different stages of art. Like if I'm doing something that sort of, okay, I know I have a plan and now I'm executing it, or this part of it executing it, I can listen to this music and enjoy it. Whereas other times it's like I'm thinking about it. I need to have my full awareness on my art. So and I know some people really need the music, some people really need the silence, and some people like Kim will listen to stories a lot, like audiobooks, while she's working, and that I really have to know what I'm doing, because otherwise it's just like I'll notice that everything is stopped on my art process because I've been listening to the story. So different strokes for different folks, right? So let us know. So Val said she loves the look of Collage, but struggles to do it herself. So something that I think everyone's got to figure out what works for them and what doesn't. And Collage was, like, as sort of originally practiced by those French artists, was too much chance for me. It was like, it seemed like it's just, you're tearing back, and what you get, you get. But so what I have found, seeing if I can see what I want to lay my hands on quickly or not. Yeah, so this one, which I just did recently, what I find is I like to cut along particular edges. So that whatever image is on the top is kind of important to me. And this is by no means the only way to do decollage, but I'm thinking about what you were talking about, Val, and that's something I find as well. Like, I need to sort of balance control and chance. So I will sort of cut along certain edges, like a dress or a limb or a face edge, and then tear to that or through it. And sometimes the tears are just tears, and sometimes they tear and peel back along cut edges. And so it's a way that I can abstract. Like, and then here I've sort of taken, oh, well, I'll take the cheekbone, the line of the cheekbone, and cut that out and reveal something below that. Same thing with the eye. So this, I find, is this dance between the chance that decollage gives me and the intention that my cuts and noticing do. So yeah, that's and this piece was what I used for the YouTube image for today. But I also then did some Photoshop work where I superimposed it with another another piece of mine, because I thought it made it a little less. I feel this is kind of like more fashion and less monsterish. So I thought, oh, I'll put it together with something else in Photoshop, which, yeah, that is cheating a little bit in some ways. Depends on what you call cheating, right? So, yes and no. Really, I think anything that works is works for your creative process is valid. So, I don't do as much digital work as Kim does, but I definitely enjoy playing with it. So, I'm thinking these two look like they might be fun together. In fact, I think maybe what I'll do. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna lay those down, and then I think I'll tear one back to the other. But then those two might be kind of like my main top image, and then I'll tear back to other stuff selectively, tear and cut back to see how that goes. I am being a little contrived with this because I am sort of going to place this one in relationship to this face, because I am going to want to tear this back and have part of that face and part of this face. And then I will play more chance games with what's below. So control and chance. And I'll probably set this one aside while I do at least something else so that the glue dries a little bit. Whether you decollage with the glue still wet or whether you do it with once it's dry depends on the artist. I know Randall Plowman likes to thoroughly glue things, but with medium, but then he does his decollage right away while it's still wet. Whereas I find, sort of, for what I'm doing anyway, and that may change as I go along, I find what works for me is, sorry, pause while I do some lining up here. And it's imperfect lining up, which is sort of, because they're different scales. The two faces are different scales, so I just want them to feel like they're sort of in the same ballpark. And I did put glue on this side, so I'm going to just sort of let it flap. And then I'm going to set that aside to come back to. You poor people. I'm always doing that. I'm always not finishing stuff while we're going. And I have the feeling that there was a thought that I needed to come back to, but I've forgotten it. My brain these days is rather sad. So I'm going to check up on what you guys have been saying. Val says, I really like the Jerry Cans, a band from Nunavut. Oh, that's kind of ska with traditional throat singing. Oh, I'm jotting that down. That's awesome. I love anything that sort of takes a traditional form and mashes it together with a contemporary form like that. That sounds wonderful, Val. And Cherie says, I use audiobooks on my walks. That's a great time to do audiobooks, for sure. When I do my artwork, I gravitate towards classical. I'm distracted by lyrics. They draw my attention. I'm the same way. I kind of like anything that feels like, if I am going to have music, if it has an ambient quality um, that I feel sort of occupies part of my brain, but the lyrics, I do gravitate to lyrics, and I think some people do and some people don't, but I definitely do. So I'm like trying to make them out, and then I'm losing the thread of my art. So yeah, classical is a like especially maybe like chamber music, right, where it's got um, where it's designed to be congenial background music. It's designed to be music that is behind another activity, around another activity. I've gone to a couple of Paul Butler's collage parties, and he plays sort of, at least the one that I went to, he was playing sort of techno music that had some energy to it, but it didn't have lyrics, which I thought was great, and it had sort of a degree of energy without being really in your face. So it kind of made you gave you energy without sort of stealing, without sort of demanding attention, which, you know, that's a kind of an interesting balance. So I found that really useful, and I definitely churned out a lot of collages during the time I was there. So that showed it was obviously working to some extent, for sure. All right, got some horizontals and some verticals, but some of these are horizontals only because that's the way they were photographed. They don't need to be necessarily. There's some in the back. It's kind of fun, actually, that like really out of focus, that may find its way in too. That's kind of fun, isn't it? Sometimes, I don't know whether that's going to be it for that, but I kind of like just those two. So I'm going to take the little strips off the bottom. Yeah, take those tops and bottom ones off. That's just a case there of just chance, right? It just happened to look interesting. So again, a byproduct, right? Something I was tearing off of that other image. And then something about it's being out of focus. Tear off the logo there. It just made it interesting. There are these interesting connections that are unexpected between. Should it line up? Should it not line up? Should it be jogging down? It should jog down. I think that jog down's kind of nice. So 3/4 of an inch in from that side. Just glue that and go from there. And you know, look at this. This is, you know, I'm gonna glue this down, but the way I tore this inkjet print, this other side has this sort of beautifully sort of rusty edge. And I'm thinking, oh, I wonder if I've got that on the other piece of that I tore off. And maybe that could be a factor as well. I think I'm gonna have to try it as an element. I see one just out of the corner of my eye that I'm gonna wanna put into this to see how that plays. It may or may not be enough, but that's kind of fun, isn't it? Just having that little echo of that edge. So, yeah, I think that's going to have to happen. And I'm thinking go for another one of my black backgrounds, my black rounds. And I can try it, right? Which is, that's the nature of collage, right? You can see whether it works. I do like the way that black looks, even if I have some white coming across it. Yeah. So I think that's going to be the base. I do love playing with black paper because there's just something. It immediately takes it away from the expected, because paper is normally white, or images are printed on white. So it makes, I don't know, it's kind of like darkness. It adds like cinematic, like maybe like old oil paintings where they would start with a dark ground and then gradually glaze up sort of luminous colors on top. But, you know, so much of Northern Europe, you know, anything after daylight was just by candlelight. So maybe that's why those sort of still lifes had that quality of like candlelight kind of feeling. That way, because I've got some glue on the bottom, and I don't want glue on my this black sheet. So maybe down there it shouldn't be as much of a problem. I think that will be under. Hopefully, it'll be under this. So how have your monster pieces been going? I see that it's almost 3:30. So tell me in the comments what you've come up with. Obviously, we'll see it in the Collage Jam pages. This morning I got back there for the first time in a little while. Saw a bunch of the 5-piece collages. Some really nice pieces there, guys, and also on the Windows theme. So wow, yeah, really. My life has been a bit hectic lately, so I haven't been on the Facebook group as much as I would have liked recently, but I did get there this morning and took a look at a bunch, and wow, you guys are cooking. It's awesome. So way to go. And I love how many of you guys are doing like the Paris Collage Collective things and posting them there as well. That's awesome. It's great that they have those. They have something for every week, and it's image-based. Like most of our prompts are word-based, so it's great to have those image-based ones as well. I have glued that on the back side, and I wanted to bring this white sheet in as well. See, walking and chewing gum at the same time. You got to watch me. I'm going to try and sneak this one in under it. So yeah, what did your monster mash piece end up looking like? Presumably you may still be working on it, but did it sort of go in the direction you thought it was going to go or not? See quite as much of that color. I guess if it were white on white, you'd see the color on the edge, but you do see it, and I think that's some glue on the front. Classic. Nice out of focus photograph, but then the glue is in Has a nice crisp edge. Oh well. Something else might find its way on top of that. But that's kind of wacky, and not at all was that what I was expecting to do, but there you go. Too small and too specific, I think, for this one. If I do glue something over that to address that little bit of grunge that I don't like, it's going to be something that is also more ambient and less crisp and specific than an image like that. So I have to think about that. All right, so at least we got, at least I got this COVID one done, and this one's partway done, and I've got this one to do some tearing away from, so I'll see how that goes. And I think maybe now is a good time to, oh, I still have a few minutes. Okay, so it's almost 3:30, but not quite, so I'll see. I'm just gonna look for, I may or may not find something that's suitable for this. You know what? It might just be another piece of white torn paper with that interesting colored edge. All right, I want to find the piece that I tore, the image that I tore those off. It was these two that I was editing by tearing. And since this one is the out of focus background from this image, maybe there's something on this side. Pretty funny. I printed the image for this guy, and I'm using. I'm more interested in the out of focus background, which is pretty funny. So that's actually kind of fun right there. And the reason I find that fun is that yes, it is crisp, and these guys are less crisp, but it is in sort of echo of that clothing. Now it's in focus, so that's an option, something like that. Go the other direction. Oh, look at this, guys. So this piece just happens to have this dark area here. I don't even know what it's from. It's from this hair. And there's also this light area here. And so look at how it correlates to the eye and where the head is, sort of. And so that, I think, is really cool. I'm going to, I think, cut the white edge off of this and just lay that in. And that, to me, feels like the collage god's giving me something really interesting. And it also helps take away from this sort of more obvious picture of Olivia Colman, which the more you can sort of get away from the photographer's intent or the original imagery intent, right? Whatever it is, in this case, it is photography, but and to make it more about your intent, the better. And I think that does that kind of nicely. So this one, I'll just have to be careful enough that I don't get glue on it, right, this time. But yeah, sort of lining that up with that eye. And then this isn't quite a perfect lineup, but it does still sort of feel related though, doesn't it? Like the head is different there, but actually that's more better. And then this becomes this very crisp thing over here. These two faces are less crisp, so that's kind of fun, right? They have the psychological weight, the high recognition, and then this thing that is just like stripes on a jacket, which is not as important as faces, has crispness. So that's kind of fun. Okay. My glue sheet has a little bit of wet glue on it still, which I don't want on the front of this piece. Find the place area where it's not got gunk on it, in the hopes that I can keep this one tidier. So I'm not convinced that's the end of that one yet, but that I think is a good step in the right direction for making it interesting anyway. All right. I'm gonna go black for a minute while I move the camera back to here to sign off. Let's see what you guys have been saying. So Lori says, my eldest nephew introduced me to Sigur Rós. Oh yeah, they're actually great for sort of ambient type music to work along, eh? Icelandic groups. 7G Englar is really beautiful. Is that like another band, Lori, or is that a song by Sigur Rós? But yeah, I've definitely listened to Sigur Rós, and I'm thinking definitely want to try again. So yeah, go back and listen to some more. Philippa says, bye for now. I'm going outside to get some sun. Well, yeah, there is some sun in this beautiful weather. So if you're still with us and haven't headed out already, Philippa, thank you so much. She says she's really enjoyed today while still struggling with homework from Art in the Garden. And Debbie says, hey, Cal, could you talk about the Paris collage image thing? So if you, Debbie, if you Google Paris Collage Collective, it is a collage collective from Paris, France, and they put downloadable images up for the whole year, one for every week, and then they also have other challenges, but and each week is numbered, and so people take the image and rework it in many different ways, any and all different ways. And if you tag it, they'll have tags to for social media so that you can look at what other people did with the image, and they can find yours. And definitely some people have, quite a few of you guys have been posting your Paris Collage Collective pieces in Virtual Collage Jam as well, which is awesome. And Debbie says, I was going for scary, and then I realized that this is subjective, and I started using visuals of women with wrinkles and crow's feet. This is scary. Oh, it's true, but it happens to us all. I got the crow's feet happening big time now, so yeah. Of an age. Judy says, thanks so much, Cal. So inspiring. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Judy. Thank you. Take care, you too. Debbie says, thanks. Lori says, one of their songs. Okay, thanks, Lori. Yes, the 7G Englar. Perfect. Cherie says, lots of fun being back to analog. Yeah, you've been doing some analog collages lately, haven't you? So that's awesome. Thanks for the collage company. You're definitely very welcome. You're welcome, Nellie. She says, another opportunity to do some art. That's exactly what I want, right? I want you to have a chance to like hang out with us and make something. And yeah, if it means you get your hands busy, then perfect, right? You're welcome, Val. Thanks. Glad you enjoyed it. And Amy says, do they acknowledge all the entries or only those that are good enough? Now that I don't know. I think you can, if you post it with a hashtag, they will find it, but I don't know whether they post everything or whether they take a selection, whether it's based on what the first several done or whether they curate them at all. Yeah, because I haven't I haven't had time to participate. I wish I did, but but you might be able to find out from some of the collagers here. Like I know Val does a lot, and I think Cherie does a lot. So hit them up on the Facebook group and ask them. So, and I'm glad you've enjoyed it today. I mean, that's awesome. Oh, so Val's already answered. Thank you, Val. She says they randomly pick some to post. So perfect. Yeah, that's awesome. So thank you so much, guys. It's been really fun. And yeah, if you can get out, if you're in the GTA, we've got some beautiful warm weather and it's sunny today. I think it's going to be cloudy tomorrow. So get out there and soak it up a little bit. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Jane says, thanks, Cal. And thanks for the recognition in cloud. No, way to go, Jane. That's awesome. Congratulations on that article. That's so great. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks, guys. Thank you so much. Hugs to everyone, and keep on collaging. Take care.